very unfriendly network, and they interviewed about 12 people on This Morning. Uh, Most of them were African American who were black, and they were saying, "Please, please, please let the president send it." These were people from Chicago. "Please, we need help."
Well, we're told because of the weekend violence, a non-for-profit group is with specially trained anti-violence volunteers patrolling several Chicago neighborhoods. ABC7 data shows at least 54 people were shot and 7 were killed over the Labor Day.
So, as you see, like there's mixed feelings about, the National Guard coming to Chicago. So Cuzzo, from your opinion, like what is your take on this? Like from what Trump said and from what the lady and the young man, the young lady and young man who shared their two perspectives on having National Guard in Chicago.
I'm not the smartest guy, but I do have, a deep thought process and a pretty broad perspective way I look at things. And I don't speak on things in terms of taking one side or the other. I speak in terms of the fair and logical thing to do in the situation. And when I say that, I look at, the history of, the areas that they're talking about in Chicago and what we hear and, used to call the place Chirac in certain areas. So yeah, so even coming from that perspective, I don't see how the lady in the first take could say, we don't need anybody to come here. We can take care of it ourselves. All we got to do is just put the gun down. If all we had to do is put the gun down and you guys haven't done it yet, it's not going to ever happen until possibly there's no one left. So the same thing that happened in Washington, D.C., is the same thing that could happen in Chicago, and that's to get the violence out of those areas. And a lot of people have wanted that type of help for a long time, even back in the day in the 80s, in the 70s, when they had drugs and gangs and they wouldn't come to those areas because they didn't care, because those areas were full of African Americans, the blacks, as
yeah, that was funny to read. You said they were black.
They were black. Yeah, the blacks. Because African American could mean something else too. They can be South Africans that came
That's
here,
true.
like the ones he brought here, and because they got kicked off. Yeah, they farmland, so they're considered African American, but they're not considered black.
Right.
So looking at it from that perspective, I mean, when you have a president or the federal government that comes into your state jurisdiction, there's going to be a lot of pushback, especially if you have a Democratic representative in that area, which is what I've been hearing. He's like,
J.D. Pritzker is the governor. He's Democratic, and then Johnson is the mayor.
Yeah, I was looking for the clip because I actually just seen it. I thought I sent it to you, but I didn't. But he basically said, yeah, if you come here, then there's going to be more violence or something like that, or that's not going to stop the violence, or something stupid he said that had really no logical sense or meaning to it. Right. If you bring in the National Guard, you don't think that's going to stop the violence? From what experience are you speaking of? Do you think this is Iran, Iraq? Do you think this is any other place that people fight, and throw bombs, at, American troops on a regular basis because this is a war? Or you think this is a homeland situation that they're looking to get rid of violence, on their soil? So in order to help facilitate that and give aid to your local law enforcement who hasn't done it yet, let's bring in the National Guard to see what we can do to end that violence or to end the violence in that area. If it's people in the area that don't want to be in the area and want to create violence, we need to get rid of those people. That's what he said, right? That's what peace is. You get rid of the agitators that want to agitate in an area, or they want to be chaotic, or they want to be, a nuisance, to create, whatever imbalances they want to create in that area, because either they're selling drugs, they feel like that area and that space and place is theirs. And this is based on history now. This is based on the ecosystem being set up that way for, a couple decades. This is not just something that's just happening outright regular right now. This has been happening. You've had gangs in that area. You've had the as they call it, the YNs come up to where we had the drill rap, and you've seen all the shootings and the retaliations in that area. And they've allowed that to happen because it was beneficial for them to allow the blacks to eradicate and exterminate themselves, as it always has been. This is their ploy. So you as the local government, or you as the local mayor or the representative, there's only so much you can do. There's only so much resources that you have. But who's to say this does not help you achieve the goal that everybody already wants for that area? Because if you have violence in your area, doesn't that bring down your property value? Doesn't that bring down, your neighborhood and the opportunities that can come into that area because there's so many violence? So, I mean, looking at it from that perspective, I can kind of understand what the pushback is about, but that's not a feasible and a logical place to come to if the violence is still going on now. What answers do you have for the people that live there that say they live in fear to come out of their own house, to be able to have their kids come outside and play on a regular basis, to be able to walk down the street? Those are real things. Yes, Trump said it, and because he said it, people are going to ignore it, and they're going to give pushback because of who he is, and who people have told him that, yeah, we don't want to listen to anything that guy said. Let's just wait for his 4 years, and then we can get back to doing whatever we did before. That's the
Martial response is
that's the mindset. It's not, let me see how I can deal with this person. Let me see, what we can do to, all do better by working with this individual. It's just like, no, we don't want to hear anything he has to say. Let's just let him talk, and we're just going to push back on everything he said, irregardless of if it's something that's logical or something that helps us. We can't accept that help, because as soon as we accept that help, then we're no better than he is.
right.
That could be the mindset.
Yeah, man, and I agree, man. This Chicago has been historically one of the worst places to go to as it relates to crime and violence. And I'm not talking about all of Chicago, because it's like any city, in any state, that there's, certain locations that you go to. But like, to your point, Chirac, to other things that come up where they've been like the number one, murder city in the United States, and historically bad. And for her to say that, she looked like maybe she was in her 30s. If she's born and raised in Chicago, she has to know or have heard of somebody who has experienced some of these things that have happened, as it relates to violence. Multiple cops getting, murdered, out there, getting unalived, multiple, children, as well. Like just, it's just crazy. And I know it happens everywhere, but this is like, it has to be something different about this place, because this place is always listed or rated high as it relates to that type of, violence. And, you have movies about it outside of Chirac, like that's how it's depicted, and I've seen it covered, it being like the mayor of Chicago, how people are going back and forth with him because he got rid of ShotSpotter. ShotSpotter is a system that is used to, it's like a noise listen. I mean, a active listening system where it triangulates where gunshots are fired at, and it helps alert the police so they could come to those locations. So they got rid of that. There was thousands of police officers laid off in Chicago. And then also, the mayor, talks about these when people go into groups, like he calls it large gatherings instead of what it is. It's, a mob of people doing stuff that they, shouldn't be doing, and when we all know, and it's just not in Chicago, when it's summertime, that's when everybody is out. Everybody wants to be out in the streets, and then that's when a lot of bad things happen. And for them to deny the people the justice or the protection that's needed, it's not about party, because they get caught up into the party things, Democrat, Republicans. I understand. You want to stand firm. You don't want to ask for help from Trump because he is the enemy, as it relates to politics, but your people need you, and throwing money at it is not going to do anything, because he said, Pritzker was saying, we asked Trump for help, but he asked Trump for money. And the money is being misused. It's a whole lot to unpack under that, because the Chicago and Illinois, just like California, they're in debt. Like Chicago alone is in a $1 billion deficit. So they don't have the funds to hire these people, and it's because they mismanage funds. And yeah, that's another story. But I just think that to deny and to work against the president because he's trying to send help just doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous. And for people to back the mayor and the governor, knowing that they're doing that, is ridiculous to me too, because it's like, who has your best interest at heart? Somebody's trying to solve this, and guess what? I'll say this, that may not be the way to fix it long term, because I believe there is a way to fix this long term. There needs to be what is the issue? First, as you need to find that out. Why is the city like this? What is the root cause? Once you find the root cause, then you can determine, how to go about fixing, the issue long term. But there needs to be an immediate resolution, and I believe, I don't know if what he says happened in, DC, like it's help with crime and violence there. We should try it out and see if it works in Chicago. Because these cats, man, the gun laws too in these cities, like the people that get caught in a compromised position are the law-abiding citizens that don't carry guns because they don't want to break the law. But the young ninjas, they don't care. I'll just say this last thing. I saw a video the other day. It was this white guy. He's a YouTuber, but he was walking around with these cats from Chicago, and he was like, "At what age, do kids get their first gun?" And he was like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, like 11-year-old carrying a gun. That's crazy. Even if it's one, that's crazy. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future with this. Trump said he's going to do it anyway. He just doesn't know. He just didn't say when. Didn't mean to say he doesn't know when, but he didn't say when. So we'll see what happens, and then we'll bring it back up. I did have one last thing I wanted to share on this topic. So I brought this up right here because some people complain about, why this National Guard, they're not supposed to. So I'll just read this real quick, and you could take whatever you want to take from it. It says the National Guard has a dual purpose, serving both its state and the nation. Its primary mission is to provide a ready reserve to the U.S. Army and Air Force fighting in overseas wars when federalized by the president. Additionally, the Guard responds to domestic emergencies, national disasters, and civil unrest under the command of states governors acting as first military responder in crises at home. So I believe some of this falls under that. But then it says like disaster response, civil unrest. So it says under the governor. But if you go down here, federal missions under the president, I looked at this: Homeland Defense defends the nation's interests and infrastructure both domestically and internationally. So you do with that information as you will. You have access to it. You could Google it. You know, that's what I did. Or you could deep dive. I'm sure they have books on these type of things that'll probably dive more into it. But yeah, on to the next one.